do one brief product thing, and then I'm going to move off of that. So, uh, I am with Wheelhouse. Wheelhouse is sponsoring this kind of like series of data deep dive town halls across regions. If you aren't aware of Wheelhouse, we are a pricing and revenue management platform. So, dynamic pricing is one of the things we offer. We have a full dynamic pricing and revenue management suite. We're primarily utilized by enterprise level clients, but we do get used by pretty much all levels from host and up. But we're the favorite of like the largest property managers. So people like V-Trips, people like Avant Stay, anyone who has scaled and has professional revenue managers, they tend to choose us. One thing I do want to mention is we're going to be looking at a bunch of data today in Wheelhouse, so it'll be Wheelhouse data. A lot of this data is free, and we've recently given out our entire performance insights business intelligence tool. So we're going to talk a lot about PACE. PACE is a really important revenue management KPI to track for decisions. And we do, if you don't have an easy way to see that, we do have a business intelligence platform that is available for free. And if you want to get on board with that, just let us know after the call. All right, enough about the product. Let's dive into some data. So first thing that I like to kind of pull up is we'll jump into these market reports in a second here. Um, I do like to do a little research just to kind of see what people are saying about the markets and see what data is available outside of, just kind of in general. Mainly because I know when you talk to owners or if you're talking to other team members, it's helpful to have multiple data sources to kind of like support what you're seeing, see what kind of different people are seeing. So one of the things I found is the Ocean City, I think this is the DMO site. This is the official site for where the kind of like spend is. They do have a monthly tourism uh kind of wrap up for hospitality. It's a pretty light one, but they do go back a couple years, and they're updated up through May this year. It's all right. I think the key ones here, because they're going to report on like their DMO traffic, which I don't think is too super interesting, but they do give some light reports on hotel and short-term rental occupancy trends. Um, in addition to that, I think this is always pretty helpful. Any kind of visitor profile and understanding that is going to be useful. But this is something you can point people towards. It does look like May was pretty strong in occupancy. Short-term rental stuff, they're not giving us the year over year, but they do have this like little graph on pace. This data is from AirDNA though, so you'll have to judge what you want to kind of take away from this. AirDNA's numbers, I think, tend to be a little higher, but they do match like a certain aspect of Wheelhouse data sometimes. Um, but can be kind of helpful. The one I pulled up really was from last July. That's the kind of more interesting time period, I think, just to see what was going on there. Last July, they did see a little bit of reductions in performance at the hotel side. They're not showing us these year over years, but AirDNA did seem to think that things were pacing pretty well at the time. Um, in terms of the visitor profile, I do want to ask you, does this look right to you guys? Is this kind of match your guys' visitor profile? It seems to be pretty regional. Like
Yeah, it does
Pennsylvania.
actually, very much so.
Okay, that's good. Do you guys see any do you guys get any Canadian travel?
Not really.
National?
Uh,
Yeah.
we get a lot of upstate New York, but nothing from Canada. Very little.
Yeah. Okay,
It
so
But
used
you're
to be
probably
many
pretty
years
insulated.
ago, but not anymore.
our
I
big
don't
our
know how
biggest
they're
market seems to
currency.
be like middle PA. Sorry, Katie.
Yeah. No, I think it has to do with their currency. I'm not sure how their currency is versus the US, but many years ago, we used to have a lot of Canadians, and they're just, their market has decreased substantially.
Yeah. The Pennsylvania stuff is definitely represented here. One thing I've wondered, and it's a little hard to kind of check, we won't really know till after, is these are also markets that appear in like the what am I trying to say? These visitor profiles of like of New York and some of those kind of northern states. A lot of those might be really competing with customers for you this year. because particularly when you go into like New England, occupancies are down a ton because Canadian travel is like basically non-existent this year. It's
Mm.
reduced substantially. Um,
Wow.
and that's causing those markets. There's like a trend that I've been seeing a little bit. I won't be able to prove it out until like we're in hindsight, I think, but a lot more markets are competing against each other than they used to, like for the same consumers. Consumers seem to be much more open to looking at different places than they were in the past. And I think primarily that's driven by prices. And just kind of like discretionary income. But it seems like, you wouldn't seem obvious, but because you have these people coming from some of these areas in the north, you may be competing against the Catskills. You may be competing against Maine markets or Cape Cod, where occupancies are depressed and rates are falling, right? Um, Very kind of interesting. The other thing I pulled up, and I'll send you these just links to these afterwards because I think they can be helpful to kind of follow. I was just looking at this news report about March, which was down a little bit. That was that was like something consistent across the board, pretty much in the country. Is March was a lot rougher. Part of that is related to Easter. Some people made up the difference, some people didn't. But they did mention in this that because this is from May, so they're trailing a little. But there's a referendum for a 5 night stay for short-term rentals going out. Are you guys
Yeah, that's
okay?
correct. That is for single homes though, is on R1 zoning.
Okay. So it's for like residential zoning. It's not necessarily for like condos or
No.
No,
yes.
it's affecting vacation rentals as well because of the requirements that they're putting.
yeah, that's pretty interesting. Do you guys how do you think that's going to affect you?
It's pretty stupid if you ask me that they do this in our towns because the whole town relies on our vacation rental traffic, but I mean, some areas have been affected, some areas not so much. We are lucky because our business is concentrated in Sunset Island and that has not been affected, but a lot of the areas in town have been. And probably Katie has more insight on that because she has properties outside of Sunset.
Yeah, I mean, there are not, most of the single homes that we see, they are not managed from property managers. There are some, but
Yeah.
the single homes, most of them, they are direct through Airbnb. I think they do them direct. But the single homes R1 zoning is only 400 some units in a huge market that we have. But yeah, it is a problem. I'm not by any means, because if they start with these, they
I-
may have a different appetite and say, hey, we may just go and probably restrict condos or, yeah, I mean, it's not a good, it's not going in good directions. Let's
Yeah,
hope.
I think that's
Yeah.
really what I'm more worried about. It's more like the political sort of affiliation of
Yeah.
our town council and our town government is more like allegiance to hotels.
Yep,
So
that's
I
correct.
think I think a lot of that, I think, they used short-term vacationers disrupting the flow of these more residential neighborhoods as like camouflage to sort of help out, kind of whittle away some of the inventory that, that
Towards the hotels.
towards the hotels. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that article says that explicitly. They're interviewing somebody and they're saying they think they're doing it partially because it's they kind of hint that it's partially because the short-term rentals are outperforming and taking market share. Um, but I totally hear you. It seems like right now it is somewhat restricted in what they're doing, but it could be a slippery slope to both more regulation and also just more negative building. The regulation itself builds negative public sentiment against something.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And then as far as the longer term stays, I would imagine, I mean, a 5 night stay is a pretty big restriction. Do you do a lot of weekly or 5 nights or how do you guys manage your length of stay policies currently, generally?
Um, we do mostly week to week. I mean, our sort of our core business is sort of like more second homeowners and less investment kind of owners. So most of our clients, what they're in here to do is sort of rent out the peak season and then, you know, use it, not necessarily cash flow the property, use it themselves in the off season. That's sort of what our market is. So as a result of that, most of our stays are week to week. This
Mhm.
year, during the wake of like, you know, we saw like a really big drop, like when Doge went after everybody, like in late February and March. And so like we sort of had a very weak main booking season. Now it's filled in nicely, and we're very happy that, you know, things picked up a lot when everything settled down. But like part of what we did to try to get inventory off the books was open up a lot of more 3-night minimums this year than in the past.
And
That
honestly,
makes
ever
sense.
before that we have.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, I think coming back to this thing, Washington, D.C. being a big feeder for pretty much, all the time, consistently, it
Yeah.
was #2, means that those shakeups in the government are going to be pretty big. Didn't see another shakeup in May or like March, May around the tariff time. That one I wouldn't expect as much. That didn't impact the drive-in markets quite the same way. It did have a big impact in the South. People just kind of tightened up spending.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of stuff. That's interesting
That
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 you
was a
see that
little
way.
less impactful on us, but I think it was all a combination. Basically everything from like kind of late February all the way until I would say probably late May. Would you say late May, Denny, has been kind of, different, and we're seeing very, very big hesitation when it comes to conversions, and something I have never seen before since like all of the 15 years we've worked, I have been in that business. It's we're getting a lot more cancellations.
Yeah, yeah. And part of that may be people like truly canceling. I think there's a trend that I see in some of these trends are more visible in the like the Florida Panhandle because there's so many vacation rentals there. They're like a little earlier than everyone in terms of some of these trends of like minimum length of stays eroding. Like that started happening a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, right? So they're kind of like on the forefront of trends that seem to be spreading across the country. And one of them they've been dealing with over the last year or two is one, cancellation policies that are much more flexible, a lot more cancellation, and also turn in the last minute where people are like they're rebooking. Either sometimes with the same company, they'll like cancel and rebook like on the day, or
Oh
people
yeah.
using the cancellation policy to hold stuff.
Oh, wow.
Um, it's difficult, right? Because it can be really damaging, especially on a really short cancellation policy. But you don't really want to like set policies that deter the people who are good bookers with you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they've found a lot of ways. I think a lot of people are like, we just need to absorb it. And the main thing is stable, making sure their price is stable and their pace is stable. Because I think what really the people who've been managing it the best, what they find is what really contributes to it is when the market's priced way too high and then it's pacing really poorly. Obviously, rates collapse. Once rates collapse, a certain amount of consumers are always going to look around. And if you have such big swings between your like highest rate and your what you end up selling in the last minute, people will make that change. The other thing too, I think, is not a lot of people just won't. There's always going to be a subset of customers who are looking for a deal, but there's always like a bunch of customers who really they booked for the convenience of not having to worry about it, right? Um, so kind of a tricky thing to handle. I do think that stabilizing the rate position and really understanding the pace is really important. Uh, we'll take a look at how the market's been pricing here, but pretty consistent in our industry. People overprice really far out, and they get bookings. But in a good year, like post-COVID, for the first couple of years, that works fine because there's so much demand. In years where you're under occupancy pressure, that high price and then having to drop because the market's pacing behind, I think it encourages this behavior among the consumer, or at least you see it, right? Because the consumer has options. Um, okay. let's dig into a little bit of market data here. Let me get my pen out. You can see me drawing on the screen, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm on the Wheelhouse market reports up here. Market reports are pretty cool. They're good for like a high level overview of kind of what's going on in the market. This would be a good place for us to start. You can see that we're covering this is what we're calling the Ocean City market. The majority of these listings are here. This is basically like 100 listings right there. This is 8,000. So even though it kind of spreads out here, it's really just because they need to sit somewhere in our system. So the majority of listings we're looking at are across the coast. If we have some time, we can dig into some specific neighborhoods data as well. But I do like to start here because we're going to just look at the big trends. One small thing here is market reports are free. So whether you're a Wheelhouse pricing customer or not, this is one of the business intelligence tools that you can access anytime. So if you like what you see or you want to use these to explain anything to anyone, all you have to do is just create an account with Wheelhouse and you can access this market report and get to the data. I'm going to hop over here to the trends section. And the place I'm going to start is this adjusted occupancy. So adjusted occupancy is a great chart because obviously occupancy correlates to demand to some degree. This is going to show us month over month, year over year occupancies. I'm going to flip a few things off for now. First big trend I notice here is the last 3 years have kind of had a little bit of a downward trend at the market level. And keep in mind, we're looking at the entirety of the market. So this includes everything in that broad region. It also includes like every listing we're tracking. So really high performing listings, really low performing listings, hosts, professionals. We'll filter down in a minute, but we do see a little bit of a downward trend at the market level over the last couple of years. When we just look at this year and last year, we see some of that trend too. So what you mentioned, where you see that big slowdown in February, you start to see it, and this is consistent across most markets in the United States, actually. January was pretty decent. Like it looked like people were pretty bullish in January. Early pacing was strong at the end of 2024. Across most markets around the country, January actually came in pretty good. In some cases, February came in pretty good. For you guys, you start to see that tilt down a little early, as you mentioned. And then March is where it kind of hit a lot of pressure in a lot of markets. Obviously, there are exceptions to that, but that kind of follows here. Now, you guys are one of the short season, like short high season markets where these months are so low occupancy in the market that it's really hard to extrapolate performance forward, and most people don't. And I think that's probably true because you're making the majority of your money right here, right? One of the things, do you ever look at or listen to market data for other markets as kind of like a bellwether?
I do sometimes, yes,
I mean,
because
we usually follow or are in sync with the Outer Banks.
yeah, I have some clients in OBX and I do check on that. And when I see that they are not performing well and they're not having a strong booking season, then that kind of gives me an alert that things may not be very good for us either. And that usually is the case.
That's smart. Yeah. For markets like this where you have a really short, like a super high, really short season, having some contacts or following some markets in the south or southeast is really helpful because they have these um, kind of bumps in the spring, and their performance there can give you an idea of like what's going on at a macro level and help at least, it's like an opportunity to just assess your strategy in terms of how you're going to position yourself for the summer. Because pretty much across the country, March was pretty poor, especially along the southeast and south. Some are going to show it more, like the Carolina markets don't really have as strong of a spring, so they don't expect as much out of it. But even then, they saw a little bit of pressure. Florida markets, particularly the Panhandle, are going to have high seasons or like high season dates, so they'll be a good one. And then if you go along the west coast of Florida, a lot of those markets actually have high seasons in Q1. Like they do the most of their money in March. So sometimes they're good to take a look at too, like Anna Maria Island, Sarasota. They're a little more restrictive on how long people stay, but there are going to be markets where, like, if they're down, they were actually down in their high season. So it's kind of an indicator that, and people are traveling down there for it. So it's kind of an indicator that, like, maybe you'll have to think about what you're going to do pricing. But you do see some of this data in your own, you do see some of this trend in your own data as well. It's hard to extrapolate off of because, you probably don't want to just adjust all your pricing because March was down in a low occupancy date, but it is something to keep track of. I always try to recommend find some ways in March and April to make an assessment of if you think things are going to be better or worse. Um, and make an adjustment to your pricing strategy accordingly that early. Um, Getting into April, we do still see attrition. Like some of this loss in March is probably maybe a little bit Easter. It doesn't get made up for in April. I'm going to come over here briefly and just break this down at a daily level just to see where these kind of occupancies were coming in. So Easter would have been at the end. It's really not. There's just higher. It might have been Easter this last year. So in green is last year. The end of March was just kind of strong in general, kind of before Easter and beyond. This year that doesn't occur in March, and you still see strength in April, but it really just follows year over year. So there's like none of this lost occupancy really moves over here. You just have kind of consistently same strong dates across April. And I think you know, that spring demand is always going to be tough, right? Because Easter moves, people, if they come for spring breaks, moves. You guys are super subject to weather, I think. That was actually in the March, um, wherever that news article was, that March one, they talk about weather. And that's pretty consistent across markets that are further north, is weather here is really going to make or break the time period. So the real question is, how is summer coming in, right? It looks like June's going to fall a little short to me at the market level, right? We've got less than a week left. We're at 44.6% occupancy. I did pull up some of the pacing for this. It's not that far behind, though. The market was at 49% at this time last year. So it is falling a little short. It does look like short-term window has been pretty strong, but it's going to come in a little short, right? In terms of like your guys' strategy, what are you guys seeing in your pace right now? Are you guys a little below, a little ahead?
We were a little bit up. We were like, I mean, not, we were negligibly up in June.
So maintaining pretty solid.
Just, actually, I know I can't say that. So we were negligibly up. We're probably, when you factor in the growth of the properties, property count, we're like dead even.
Good. Good. And is that true on the rate side too? Are you even on occupancy, even on
No,
rate?
we're lower on occupancy, higher on, we were having honestly the best booking season. I think I think Ocean City might have been having the best booking season they were ever having up until um like late February, early March. Like the early season came in strong. So we were like
Yep.
booking a lot of stuff at like very high ADRs. And then and then that window kind of, for us at least, kind of smashed.
We also started booking very early for 2025. Our bookings started coming in even in November, December, and then January, February was strong, and then everything went down after that.
Makes sense. Okay, so really good lead. I remember I was at DARM and key data presented on the end of the year, and a number of regions had really strong early booking. So it sounds pretty reasonable trend. So you guys are pretty much even on a revenue perspective, down a little on occupancy, but carried really by the ADR. Katie, how's your pacing going?
Actually, it's funny. This year I'm better than last year. Doesn't mean that last year was really bad, but this year I'm better than last year. But the problem we're having is to go back to what Danny said, that majority of our customers, they want to rent a 7 night booking, and it's hard to really kind of convince them, no matter that you send data, supporting data. And I'm part of the key data. I'm not sure if Danny, do you guys belong to key data?
We do.
Yeah. And key data basically shows that the stay days is getting shorter.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
that's what's kind of hurting us, what I can see basically, because customers don't want longer stay, they want shorter stay, especially when you have majority of people in Washington DC and all that area that are concerned. It's not they don't have the money, they just don't want to spend the money. So basically that's our, but we are a little bit slight then, but yeah, with no means, I believe June is getting lighter and lighter year after year. That's the
Yeah.
trend I see.
Agreed.
Yeah. May this year, I believe, I don't know how your Memorial Day weekend was, but I think what happened in Ocean City in May, we had that big concert, which they were so back to back, was like May 16. And we had, so our May actually was better this year versus last year. But again, Memorial Day weekend was not as good as last year. So
I
I'm
would
not
agree
sure.
completely. I would
Yeah.
agree completely.
So basically, that's where we are. And so, yeah, and I agree. I mean, we need to basically pay attention to March and April, which historically always kind of takes a dives on booking ahead. Our booking window actually, I see key data shows booking windows is shrinking. Our booking window, kind of starts shrinking, but no, really. Still, we have a booking window is like 120 days. I mean, 120 days, we are like, what can you rent at this point? So yeah, we should be booked by now, but are we? No, we are not. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Katie, let me ask you something. You guys like were doing short stays for all. You guys have been doing this for a long time, like when they weren't even a thing back in like the
Mhm.
like late 2000 like
Yeah.
aughts. And you guys always had a lot of success. I can remember filling up like very strict short stays. Like you would only allow check-ins Friday and Monday, but you would fill up doing that.
Oh, that's
Or
not the case
Thursday and
anymore.
Sunday or whatever it would be. So are you do you still find that you can fill up on those strict check-in days, those strict check-in short weeks, or have you opened your portfolio to allow like check-in dates be anytime?
Yeah, actually, that you're right. But this was when short-term rentals was not such a thing. Cole Banker introduced that originally, and that was like a new concept. And people, hey, I mean, people will get what you give them. But now with Airbnb I mean, Airbnb changed the whole market. That's what really, I don't think VRBO really changed the way that people look at rentals. Airbnb changed the market. Airbnb is book anytime, any day. And basically, people now they want to book anytime, any day. And it's hard to tell to the owners that things are changing. I mean, you give them data, you support your decision or the conclusion, and they still, because I mean, our owners, they own these properties for a long time. They just say, I don't know if you'll have the same but they say, oh, if we don't rent it, so what? We'll come and use it by ourselves. That's, it's like, okay. And at the end of the summer, they're short on money. So it's like, we told you so. Yeah, so Danny, I think we are moving. We like to move from strict Friday to Monday or Thursday to Sunday to flex, like open anytime, any day.
Yeah.
But
I I think that the general trend is that those restrictions are getting weaker and weaker across the country every year. Part of it is cultural, part of it is the booking process, and I think if you haven't really done it, the goal isn't to like loosen the restrictions across the board, but it's because like if those restrictions are working in properties that are staying consistently booked, you do want to maintain as much occupancy and revenue, and you have the restrictions. But restrictions should be placed kind of like the flip is like before the owner sets the owner or the property manager sets the restrictions and the consumer adapts to it. It's kind of the opposite. It's like if the consumer is showing you that a property is worth it, you can keep the restrictions. But if you haven't reduced restrictions, usually what I recommend is just go look at your lowest performing listings and start there, right? Because you don't have a lot to lose in those if they have a lot of vacancy. And if they do well, then you can feel more comfortable and at least, and also just learn the patterns because you are going to get gaps. You're going to get, it opens up whole new like sales efforts you have to do that. So a lot of people, as they've switched to any day, also start finding methods to offer additional nights. Late check-in, late checkout becomes a thing because you really are just selling the nights for discounts and trying to like capture that revenue that those
That's
gaps that is in between.
That's literally what Danny and I are doing, looking into like the properties that are not performing well, and we open them up first because, I mean, it's pretty obvious that there's something that needs to be done over there, and we do start with pricing, but maybe flexibility is an added value. So, and those properties do pick up. I mean, you know, whoever doesn't want to stay here for a full week, they gear towards these properties.
Yeah, and I think part of it is like age generational cultural. Like I'm a mid-millennial. I've never really booked a 7 night stay anywhere. I've never booked a 7 night vacation. I've always done like 5 or longer, like 10, 14.
Mhm.
And I think that the distribution channels being so accessible now, what Katie said about Airbnb really changing the game was really interesting because Airbnb doesn't really tell you, like when you booked on VRBO and HomeAway back in the day or FlipKey, since you had to do the inquiry thing, you really had to read and research. But now the instant book means that people just aren't aware if there is like a standard restriction in the market. It's like you in the market know, like, well, most people are Saturday to Saturday or most people are this. But the consumer doesn't know that anymore because nobody's calling and talking to the property managers before they book, or much less people are doing so. So it's much harder to like even disseminate that there's kind of like a general thing. You see this, I think, in New England. A big one is with Airbnb that has been hard for people is a lot of New England properties don't provide linens. You're supposed to bring your own. And that's just like traditionally how it's been done in a number of areas in New England. Consumers don't know that anymore because so many people the markets become so accessible to new people. Um, okay. So pretty good. Katie, we'll hit you up because that was like a great quote. You should share that quote about Airbnb changing things. It was super good. Um, share with everyone else. Um, in terms of, you did mention key data, and I think this is one thing to bring up as well. Wheelhouse is a partner of key data. We were the first pricing partner. They kind of did a big look and chose us. So we do utilize key data in our system. Um, Key data is going to be interesting. We are looking at the entirety of the market. We'll look at a higher performance group, but key data tends to focus in on the professional managers, which makes sense. And I think generally speaking, right now, key data is seeing more stability among the professional managers than what we're looking at across the market. So the markets tend to be trailing more, but that is getting that's like hitting the host section worse than it's hitting the professional managers. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's not true. But I think you're probably right in that you guys are both more stable year on year. Most professional property managers are probably a little bit more stable than what we're seeing at the market level, but you do have to also keep in mind there's a lot of properties that are unbooked that are both part of professional managers and not professional managers. And that competition could be interesting because like when we look at July is down in pacing a bit as well at the market level. 51.9. Stop maybe. I'm watching my friend's dog, and she came downstairs, but she can't go back upstairs without my help, and I'm busy right now.
Feel free to take 30 seconds if you need to.
Oh, she'll be all right.
Yeah, all right.
She'll be all right.
You're saying
and
last year was 50%, right? And as it was pacing 50% occupied right now.
So there's a big chunk of reservations missing for July. Now, this is a tough thing, is the short-term windows have been much stronger. So as the booking window shifted, not all of that pace ends up missing, but a lot of the time it ends up coming in at a much lower rate. So what you guys were mentioning before is I think it's really key for people in the market to be paying attention here and making decisions about the pace so that they can basically stratify their offering. Like if you have stuff that isn't performing well or didn't perform well last year, putting that out at different price points than, you know, kind of keeping everything at a premium. There tends to be a trend where people keep everything at a premium and then a whole slew of properties end up competing at the last minute. I think it's very dangerous, and making those adjustments to both, like minimum stay is another way to do it, right? Kind of putting together different strategies for high and low performers based on what you're seeing early in other markets and in your market, I think really helps, because we'll look at some rate stuff, but I think it's pretty consistent that people are only looking out 60 to 90 days generally, like at a market level on average, and they're not quite looking out far enough to react. Then for August, um, August is a little behind as well. Kind of low on the books, but like June is falling short, but it's not falling as short as the deficits in the pacing, right? So
I'm
August,
sorry, I have a question. Is this specifically Ocean City you are referring to?
this is kind of the general area.
Okay,
So it's going to
general.
include,
Can you dig more in Ocean City, because we don't see exactly what you are kind of presenting. But yeah, I understand what you are saying.
we're
So,
looking at the entirety of this kind of,
okay, so you are looking all that. So this data you have is this map here, the pink one.
yes.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, at this level, right?
Okay.
There's a few listings out here, but they're negligible in terms of like the total number. There's 8,000
Oh,
listings.
there you have Fenwick. So basically you have Fenwick Island, West Ocean City, a little bit of Salisbury, I think.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're looking at the region here,
Yeah,
just to see the general trend.
Okay.
We can,
Okay.
I'll get through this real quick. Let's see, what time is it? We got a little bit of time. I'll show you. We can maybe we might have some time to dive into some specific market, like neighborhood level data. In general, though, where did my pen go? Pacing down a bit. I'll rush through this real quick. I do like to check asking rates. Asking rates are the averages of how the market is posting rates. So it's what people are advertising. It's not necessarily the ADRs. It actually includes both. It includes both booked and unbooked because it's advertised rates, right? So you see kind of what the market is doing, and you see that general trend. This was kind of supported a little bit. People's prices still remain pretty high at the market level, compared to what they were doing year over year, right? People are pushing the rate, even when stuff is pacing behind.
Yeah.
Professional managers probably doing this a little less. I think it's also important to note, you see that these rates are really high August and out. People just kind of aren't paying attention too far out. I think they're not keeping their stuff super competitive. And for you guys, even though it's not a strong time period, there is some strength in September, and October is stronger than April and March. There could be some opportunities to, if you put a competitive rate and restriction quality out. You don't have to go all the way to last year, but you can kind of just beat the market and capture the market share of anyone who's coming. I think that's always a good thing to do if the market is under pressure, is just look out an extra season. You can make a few small adjustments and take the market share, because the market is not being competitive out here.
That graph is super telling of what people maybe I think that what that basically says is that COVID expectations are still rampant through our market.
Yeah.
So
and these fall as they get closer. Go ahead, Katie.
Right, right.
I'm sorry. I was just basically, how do you explain to an owner when these expenses are going up and your income are going down? I mean, that's the first thing
It's
that basically
challenging in that sense. I agree with you, but the thing is, though, people are now expecting that it's going to be always like the post-COVID season, and that's just not the way that it's just not.
Katie, I would venture to say that's when you get Vaughn to send them a market analysis of what the house is worth.
That's right. So they can sell it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think the market data is helpful because a lot of people think about well, there's a few things. One is, I'm a big proponent that occupancy is always worth more than ADR. So like raising rates doesn't necessarily make more money. Especially like driving occupancy and vacancy is the first lowest hanging fruit to increase. It's not always easy to do, but that's the easiest way to increase revenue if you can find a way to do that. And so for now, I think trying to just capture market share, even if it's not at the best rate out here, can help a property a lot. And having that conversation, like, hey, we're not going to give up your summer yet, but occupancy is down across the market. That means things are being more competitive. What we need to do, like, let's give up some rate, but see if we can get some occupancy out here.
I
First good
actually
conversation.
just did this type of like informational piece to one of our homeowners that was resistant of reducing rates, and I literally send them a link to your video that you posted prior that conversation, and he was like, okay, let's do it. I understand. So
Yeah.
sometimes they need to hear it from somebody else versus just not from, not just from us, because they feel like, we're just trying to go the easier way, because they always feel like the easier way is cutting rates. It's not necessarily my goal or anybody's goal to cut rates. I always say the more you make, the more we make. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's better to make something than nothing. So yeah, I literally just sent them the article and they were like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, that's partly why we do this, honestly, is because I believe the same thing. That's why I go and look up other data too on our Wheelhouse presentation, is be like, hey, let's hear what some other people are saying. And the
Mhm.
goal is to triangulate how that applies. Like, and these are different views. The Wheelhouse data I'm showing you is a lot broader, but you can see like, hey, you're competing with these other markets around you.
Yeah.
It can help you make that story of like, there's a lot of competition. Key data is like, well, hey, professional managers, like, don't do it yourself. Like, professional managers are maintaining compared to this other data. Like, there's different angles you can use the different data for. Um, One interesting thing I wanted to point out here, and this is something that's kind of consistent. So I switched the performance to look at the top performing listings in the market. So this is like the top 20% of listings by revenue over the last year. And their trend tends to be a little different. This isn't true in every market, but I see this quite commonly. And let me pull off 2023 here. They're much more conservative in their rate position. Right? They are not pushing the rate in the top performing listings near as much. They did a little bit earlier in the year, but they came off that for the summer. They're still a little bit higher, even though there's some pressure on the pace, but they're being much more conservative overall. And you can also see they're looking out further. So before in the graph before, and I'll show you real quick, this gets high and it just stays high and it gets really high starting in September. If you look at the top performing listings, they don't stay high until November. So they've got an extra like 2.5 months that they're trying to price for accurately. And that kind of goes into what I'm saying is like you got to look into that next season too. There actually is opportunities in the lower stuff if you book early, because that rate's going to come down anyway, right? If you have premiums up, you very rarely book them. So anywhere where you're not booking and your posted rate is way higher than what you kind of actualize on average is actually an opportunity, I think, to take market share in a market under pressure. And that's just kind of evident in this top performing group, because if we look at their occupancies too, they sit at much higher occupancy levels. June looks like it's still might fall short, but it's close. They're in a pretty similar position pacing wise for July, but that trend is something that I think is pretty interesting. And I see it in a lot of markets, especially I see it less in it's not in every market, but I see it in a number of markets. It's something I actually look for now is are the high performing properties pacing differently and are the high performing properties pricing differently? Um, okay. Well, we've got 10 minutes, so I'm not sure we'll be able to dig into too much. Let me see if I have time to throw one together. So I'm going to go into the Wheelhouse sets data. So this is a different data source. Um, This is just going to be scrape data because we do let you go to the listing data. The other data I was showing you includes all of our direct source data and our key data partnership data. But this allows us to get some insights into specific areas.
You can go to 21842, just the zip code. 21842 is specifically Ocean City. You can do it by zip code.
Okay. And roughly, should I go up to like this expressway?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Because above that is Fenwick, and I don't think either one of us have anything in Fenwick. That's it. Perfect. Yes, it's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we're not in there. Up another like 10 blocks north and west.
Oh, you do have one, Danny? What do you have in West Ocean City?
No, no, no. If you pull your
Oh,
listing
okay.
up just a little bit to cover Sunset Island,
I think it is Sunset Island. He has it.
right
No.
there.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. No, keep going. I'm so you see, my apologies. I thought that you are Fenwick there. You keep going all the way. Oh, yeah, keep going all the way up. I'll tell you why. That's right. You don't have Sunset Island all the way to Fenwick Inlet.
Basically
Yes,
the state line there. Yeah.
that's right. The state line. Yeah, I thought to see my eyesight. I'm losing my eyesight. What's wrong? It looks so similar. Yeah, that's a whole island basically. And
There
you're
you go.
right.
That's
That's
it.
right. Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
If we don't have time to dig into this one exactly today, what I'll do is I'll work with Edson and uh, we'll find a way to share this with you guys so that you can access it if you like, or we can send you some of the data out of
Oh,
it because it will have to load when I save it, and I'm not sure if that will work in time. I'm just going to filter this down a little bit. I want to keep properties that are open most of the year last year. And I'm going to filter out the lowest performing stuff here. Um, let's see here. These. So this is one of those data tools we have that actually you could do this for any specific neighborhood. Um, and it will give you a similar market report to what we were looking at, but for this. Um, this is a partially free product, so when I say we'll give you access, you can access all the data on this, which actually gives you quite a lot of data, but it's going to be listing level data. To get to the market report, that is a subscribed feature. And that's what I mean when I say we can see if we can get you access to this without you having to be subscribed to anything. While I load this up, and we may run out of time here, and I don't want to keep you guys over because I know everyone's busy.
I have a question for you. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you work with a lot of property managers like us, because do a lot of property managers give up a lot of leeway, for example, going to their owners? Because our contracts are a little bit, or maybe where I'm doing business, the old way of doing business, because we're obligated by contract not to change the prices so many days prior, so many weeks prior, and by that I mean automatically without going, one by one. Do people have on a contract a different terms and conditions? Do they have more free range? How are they?
Yeah, it's going to be very varied based on where people are, right? And I think most companies over the last 5 years just give
Yep.
themselves the capability to set rates or change rates, and then they allow owners to set minimums, right? Because the owners need to be able to say something, but they try to get the clauses out that require like notice on changing the rates, or they give themselves a range, right? Like, you know, it's more common in like the Carolinas and a little bit north and a little bit south for people to be like, well, we'll give you a rate plan and then we have a range. Once you get into Florida, it's like the managers are like, we have control over your rates. You can set a minimum.
Okay.
And that tends to be, I think, more people are trying to shift that direction, which
Yeah.
is like, they're
Danny, are you like that, or you are just like us, that the price is the price and you need to go to the owner and ask him and work 5 times harder to
Are you asking us?
Yeah,
Yeah, we have minimum. Yeah, we have minimums, like John said. We do like a
you have
minimum
more
weekly,
flexibility, basically.
and daily rate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. That's a good way to conduct business. That's the
Yeah.
way it should be. But as I say,
It's
we are, yeah.
yeah, key. We were able to do that like when we broke from Vantage,
Mhm.
we kind of just because it's hard when they've been in one program for so long,
Yeah,
it's hard to make them swallow a new pill, but since we
yeah,
were on a new ship all of a sudden, we just felt like, you know what I mean? That's kind of what
yeah.
happened.
No, I agree. I agree. But you have this in a body of a contract, though, and that's what, at least you have some. Yeah, we need to change the terms.
The contract is like it's this living document that almost if we were
Mm,
really on our game, man, we'd be changing this thing and running addendums on it every year, because
yeah,
it's such a changing industry. It really requires
that's
that,
true.
but
That's true. Yeah.
it's one of those things that always gets put to the bottom of the list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead, John. Yeah. Thank you.
oh, I got this loaded. We'll get it sent to you. We'll find a way to do that. You might have to sign up with an account with Wheelhouse, but that's a free thing.
Yeah.
But then we'll get you access to this.
Wow.
The main one here. So I got the occupancy pulled up. It does look like June's going to fall a little bit short. May looked pretty decent,
Yep.
and April actually performed pretty well in this like smaller subgroup around Ocean City. And July is pacing better,
Wait.
much better than the market in general. So the market in general was around. They had about 60%
49. Yeah.
on the books. Yeah, yeah, of like 60% of what they had, right? Uh, right now, this one's at like 80% of what last year was. So there's a much higher pacing for July in the Ocean City portion than when we looked at the broader region.
Hmm.
So that means in the broader region, those other areas are probably underperforming quite a bit, which is also something to keep in mind. If you get into the short-term window, that could actually be a big risk because their price may collapse around you. And if a customer is like really price sensitive, you know, they might end up looking at places that are really a good deal that normally wouldn't compete with you just because they're a good deal. Um, awesome, guys. Well, really appreciate your time today. We'll probably do this periodically. We do obviously a
Yeah.
lot of
Thank
different
you.
markets. We'll
Mhm.
probably touch on it. I think the goal would be to touch on it again towards the spring because I think that's a really key time for you guys to kind of be aware of what's going on. Also, keep an eye out if you don't follow Wheelhouse much. We do a series every other month where we actually just talk with some of the top revenue managers in the nation, just about general trends going on and what people are seeing. And then if you want some additional access to data or would like to explore us as a pricing platform, we'd love to set up some time with you. I didn't get a chance to show you, and I mean, I don't do a product demo on this, but we have really good tools to very quickly see your own pacing at a very granular level as well. And those are totally free. And then obviously our pricing platform is the one chosen by all of the major professional revenue managers. So we'd love to have a conversation if you guys are interested. Probably, I would guess after the summer. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's worth starting to look, right?
Oh, thank you very much. It's been very useful. Thank you. Absolutely. Pleasure.
Problem.
Thank you.
Pleasure, guys. We'll get you
Yeah.
the
Thanks.
recording
Yeah,
and
good meeting you. Take care.
Thank
we'll see
you.
you.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Danny, nice
Bye.
talking,
Hey,
chatting with
take
you.
care. Yep.
Elena, yeah,
Yep. Tell
yeah.
Vaughn hi.
Thank you. I
All right.
will say hello
All right.
to everybody. Thank you very much. Pleasure.
All right.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.